Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Week 18 episode of the Walkthrough with me, Jamie Hoyle. I am here to talk all things Chargers heading into their Week 18 matchup with the Oakland or Las Vegas Raiders. I knew I was going to do that. Lots to talk about today. First of all, I want to start off the show by wishing everybody a very happy new year. Hope everybody really enjoyed a fun, safe, relaxing holiday with their loved ones, friends, and family, and all that good stuff. I know we had a great Christmas and a very low key New Year's Eve, which is more and more the case as the kids get a little older. We like to just kind of chill at home and take it easy. Um, but anyway, hopefully you all had a great New Year's Eve. Wishing everybody a very happy, healthy, successful, prosperous new year, and that you get everything that you need and deserve and have coming to you heading into 2025. So, with that out of the way, we have a lot to talk about today. Going to try to get through it as succinctly as I can. Hopefully, it'll be entertaining and informative. Just kind of my thoughts on what's been going on with the Chargers lately, and what to look forward to going into the playoffs. Some things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to do a quick kind of recap of the Patriots game. I'm going to talk about some adjustments the coaching staff has been making over the last 2 weeks or so that I think seem to be paying dividends and putting them in a really good position heading into the playoffs, excuse me. And those are some schematic changes, also some personnel changes, things that I think have been needed for a while and are finally starting to work their way into the game plans. All good things. Then I kind of want to talk about the Chargers peaking at the end of the season, and particularly what they've looked like over the last 6.5 quarters, some things that they've done through the last 2.5 quarters of the Broncos game and through the Patriots game that hopefully will set them up for success in the playoffs. And then we'll talk playoff scenarios, things that have, and those scenarios have simplified quite a bit after Saturday's games. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll go inside the numbers really quickly on the Raiders game, have a few numbers for you that I think are important. So let's go ahead and talk just really quickly about the Patriots game. And before I get too deep into it, obviously, and I said this in the clip that I provided for After Hours last week, obviously the Patriots are not a good football team. In fact, they're a pretty bad football team. They're not well coached. They're not executing very well. They don't have a lot of talent. So there isn't a whole lot that you can take from beating up on a team like that. But I do think there are some positives, things that I was happy to see happen that I think are kind of evidence of philosophies and mindset changes within the building, and also just the culture change. Um, so, having said that, there are some things that I thought were really important in the Patriots game, things that they've been doing a little bit here and there, but they really showed up in a big way and were really successful in the Patriots game. First thing for me is, and they've been doing this pretty much all year with maybe one or two exceptions, is they took care of business against a bad football team. This was not, the Chargers rolling in overconfident against a bad football team, playing an inexcusably close and bad football game, letting a team hang around and potentially beat them with the playoff spot on the line. That was not what happened at all with the Patriots. This was a focused team that was looking to lock down a playoff spot. They knew they had an opponent on the other side of the field that was not playing good football, that is really struggling down the stretch. And they went in and they squashed them. They got up early. The Chargers did. They stepped on their throats the first chance they got, and they kept them down, kept knocking them down throughout the game, never really gave them a chance to catch their breath or to climb back into the football game. So that's a huge evidence to me of a culture change, coming, and it really started in the middle of the second quarter of the Denver game, coming off the Tampa game where they get blown out and they just look unprepared and outmanned and outcoached and just brutal. I mean, that was easily the worst game of the season. It was just awful. In terms of playing a competitive team and getting blown out of the water. It was just terrible. So, and then the first quarter and a half of the Broncos game kind of looking the same. They can't get off the field on defense. They fall behind early. They're getting, it looks like they're going to get boat raced by the Broncos and potentially lose a playoff spot. And then something clicks, you know, midway through the second quarter. And really for the last 6.5 quarters, they've been playing really good football. And in the Patriots game in particular, I thought they played their first complete football game. They played 4 complete quarters. Granted, it was against a bad football team, but still, it's an NFL team. They're still professionals over there. 4 full quarters of complimentary football. The defense got off the field on third down. The offense stayed on the field on third down. They converted red zone opportunities, and they made plays on both sides of the ball. And outside of really a couple of holding penalties, the special teams also complemented the offense and the defense. They really won that game in all 3 phases of the game. And that to me is really important because it's not something they've done consistently this year. For them to hold the ball for 40 minutes of a 60-minute football game, regardless of who the opposition is a huge, huge step in the right direction. Because it just shows that, they were in a position to dominate a bad football team, which is something that good football teams should do on the regular. And the Chargers have, for the most part, done a really good job of that this year. So those are a couple of the takeaways. Defense played really well. Offense was fantastic. And 4 complete quarters. In terms of some of the changes they've been making, and I think this is really important, something to focus on. So offensively, I think we've seen kind of a shift in the offensive philosophy. Coming in, it was, we want to run the football. We want to be physical. We're going to run the ball down your throat. We're going to control the clock, and we're going to wear you down, and we're going to kind of bludgeon you with the running game. And that hasn't really come to fruition for a variety of reasons. They've struggled with the interior of the offensive line. J.K. Dobbins was hurt for a few games. Gus Edwards has been hurt. They just really haven't had any traction in the run game for really a variety of reasons. And over the last, I would say, 6.5 quarters, things have changed a little bit. They're not as devoted to the run on first and second down as they have been. They'll still run it on first and second down, but you're seeing more play action on first and second down. You're seeing more just traditional pass sets in first and second down. They're using the defense's expectation that they're going to run the ball on early downs to find explosive plays in the passing game early in the game. And that sets up the running game later in the game. So that is a very important adjustment to the offensive philosophy. And then from a schematic standpoint on offense, they're doing some things towards the end of the season that they weren't really doing early in the season that I think are going to help them be more successful. A couple of the things that I saw in the Patriots game, and we saw it a little bit too in the Broncos game, but it was really more noticeable in the Patriots game. One, you're seeing more wide receiver and tight end screens. They're starting to get the ball to Ladd McConkey and QJ in particular. And now with Will Dissly back, they're getting the ball to him in the screen game. And they're creating, kind of easy buttons for Herbert in the passing game where they can run those screen plays, 5, 6, 7 times a game. And it gives them kind of an extension of the running game. Ideally you're looking at 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, something along those lines. And it's making the drives more manageable, allowing them to stay on the field. And they're not necessarily seeing those, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 situations. They're seeing more manageable third downs, and it's making it easier to convert those third downs, which we'll get to in a minute. Something else that popped up quite a bit in the Patriots game, which I loved, going in, the Patriots, I believe, had run something like 65% man coverage the week before. They were a very man-heavy defense. And obviously, the Chargers have had their issues with man coverage at times this year. And something that we saw that kind of helped offset that is a lot of pick plays. You're seeing a lot of condensed formations, stack, bunch, trips, things where they can kind of hide Ladd McConkey behind other receivers, use those receivers to push up field, and then force defenders to bubble over the top of those guys and give McConkey the opportunity to run a wheel route, one and out route, run a post or a slot fade. And it just gives them the opportunity to create space for Ladd and create plays. And it's something they did really, really well on several occasions against the Patriots, something that I absolutely loved. And they kind of added that Now you're starting to see some double moves for Ladd. You're starting to see some option routes where maybe they're throwing the ball in the red zone and it's a little tight quarters, and he's selling a smash route over the top and stopping and cutting back the other direction to create some space for himself. They're leaning into the things that their wide receivers in particular do really, really well, and they're letting those guys go out and make plays based on the strengths in their game. You're seeing some more crossers for QJ. You're seeing more screens for QJ. We haven't seen quite as many of those, 50-50 jump balls down the sideline in the red zone. It's not what QJ does well. And so it seems like they're getting away from those plays, and they're giving him opportunities to make plays where he's better suited to making plays, which is what coaching is all about. And then obviously you're seeing roles expanding for people, and you're seeing this on offense in particular. Um, some names that stand out to me, you're seeing Darius Davis, his role expanding quite a bit. He's caught touchdown passes each of the last 2 weeks. He's not making volume plays, but when he is making plays, he's either moving the chains or scoring points. Um, and it seems like they kind of waited before they put him on tape as a receiver, so the teams don't have a chance to prepare for him in the playoffs. Hopefully that is the case, and hopefully we continue to see those roles expanded. But that's a really good thing to see. Somebody else whose role has expanded quite a bit, and it's good to see, is Stone Smart. They've been lacking explosive playmaking at tight end. Really, they've been lacking playmaking at tight end with Disley hurt the last couple weeks. And so they were able to get Stone Smart involved in the passing game, play action, getting involved in the deep and intermediate passing game, creating opportunities for him to run seam routes and deep over routes, things that are really staples of this offense, always were when Greg Roman was calling the plays in Baltimore. Now we're seeing them start to show up more and more here with the Chargers, and it's something that I think will continue to expand in the playoffs as well. So those are really big things. And then the last one, we're seeing other people touch the ball too. I think this is 2 weeks in a row Herbert has completed passes to at least 9 different receivers, which is pretty crazy. They are so much more balanced. They're not as dependent on one guy. Even though Ladd is getting the bulk of the targets, they have other guys they can go to in key moments who can make plays, which has been really encouraging to see. But the other role that expanded, something that happened that took some time, is Jamari Salyer. We saw him earlier in the season. I think it was in the Titans game when he played, and he played extremely well. They didn't have those leaks in the middle of the offensive line. They ran the ball effectively against the Titans, which had a really good run defense and a pretty solid defense overall. And then we didn't really see Salyer for a while. And then we saw him again in the Patriots game. And word from practices this week were that he was practicing with the starting offensive lineman, with the ones. So Salyer, coaches evaluating what they need, what's working, what's not working, making those personnel adjustments as we work our way through the game or through the season. Those are all really important things that you see from good football teams, from playoff football teams, willing to make personnel changes, willing to make schematic changes, willing to put people in a better position to succeed, playing to their strengths. These are all really important things. And we saw some of that on defense too. We've seen more early down blitzes from the Chargers. They're blitzing to help stop the run, which has been really effective for the last 6.5 quarters or so. We've seen a little bit more man coverage. They're able to simulate pressure on third down because of the pressure they're providing on first and second down, and it's kind of speeding up quarterbacks and making things uncomfortable for them. All really positive changes. So something I've mentioned so far a couple times during the show is I've talked about the last 6.5 quarters the Chargers have played. And I think this is something that's worth covering in a little bit more detail. So we're going to talk about it right now. We've talked a lot on the walkthrough and on after hours about things that are indicators of a playoff caliber offense, right? We've talked about specific stats that usually lend themselves to being a playoff team. And those numbers really are time of possession, third down conversion rate, and red zone success rate, meaning how often do you turn red zone trips into touchdowns. Those are huge indicators of a playoff offense. And they're all areas the Chargers have struggled in for the majority of the season. I believe last time I checked, the Chargers' time of possession, they were averaging just under 30 minutes a game. They've had several games where they only held the ball for 25 minutes, 27 minutes. So they've really struggled to control the football, which means the defense is on the field a lot. And when the defense is on the field a lot, bad things happen. So they needed to find a way to control the football. So if you go back to the 6 minute and 22-second mark of the second quarter of the Broncos game in week 16, the Chargers were at a kind of a low point in that game. Not kind of, they were at a low point in that game. They looked like they were toast. They had fallen behind 14-0. I'm sorry, 14-7. They were driving to attempt to tie the score. Jim Harbaugh had just gone for it on a fourth down earlier in the drive. They decided to kick a field goal. The score goes to 14-10. The Broncos get the ball back. They go right down the field and scored a touchdown. Now the Chargers are down 21-10 with no clear evidence that the defense is going to be able to stop the Broncos offense. The Chargers get the ball back. It looks like they're going to drive down the field and score a touchdown, and Justin Herbert throws an interception in the red zone. And now things look like, oh man, the Broncos are going to get the ball back before the half. I think there was right around 2 minutes left to go in the game at this point, or in the half at this point, and it looked like they were screwed. Looked like they were in big trouble. And then something clicked. Since the 6 minute and 22-second mark of the second quarter in the Broncos game in week 16, the Chargers' time of possession, they have an advantage in time of possession of 22 minutes and 10 seconds over the last 6.5 quarters of football, which, if you stop and think about it, is insane. That is such a good job of controlling the football and turning those possessions into points. Continuing down those numbers, the Chargers for most of the season, they were somewhere down around 40% on third down conversions. They were really struggling on third down conversions. They've had some ups and downs, but overall they've really had a hard time controlling the football and staying on the field on third down. Since that 6 minute and 22-second mark of the second quarter in the Denver game, the Chargers have converted 58.3% of their third downs, which is amazing for a team that's been down around 40% all season. To complete or to convert almost 60% of your third downs is really a huge turnaround. Now, a lot of that has to do with the success they had in the Patriots game, but I think if I have the numbers right, I think there's something like 16 out of 29 on third down in the last two games, which is phenomenal. And then finally, from an offensive standpoint, red zone in the last 6.5 quarters, the Chargers are completing 62.5%, or I should say, they're turning 62.5% of their third down conversions, or of their red zone trips, into touchdowns, which again is highly efficient. So we're seeing a more flexible offensive philosophy. We are seeing schematic and personnel changes, and that is resulting in the ball moving, the Chargers possessing the ball and scoring points. And it is a beautiful, beautiful thing to see heading into the playoffs. Now, let's talk about playoff scenarios. And this picture is kind of cleared over the last 24 hours. So going into yesterday's game, the Chargers were in the 6th seed, and they were going to have an opportunity to earn the 5th seed. And they were looking at 3 playoff scenarios. So heading into yesterday, the playoff standings in the AFC were Kansas City was in the 1 seed, Buffalo was in the 2 seed, Baltimore was in the 3 seed, the Houston Texans were in the 4 seed, the Steelers were in the 5 seed, the Chargers were in the 6 seed, and then you had the Broncos, Bengals, and Dolphins all competing for the 7 seed. What the Chargers needed, they had 3 potential outcomes. One was the Steelers winning and the Ravens winning, which would have meant this game against the Raiders was basically, it didn't matter because the Chargers were locked into the 6th seed, because the Ravens would have secured the 3 seed and the Steelers would have secured the 5 seed with wins yesterday. The second scenario was if the Steelers lost and the Ravens won and the Chargers beat the Raiders today, then the Steelers would have dropped to the 6th seed. The Ravens would have secured the 3rd seed, and the Chargers would have leapfrogged the Steelers to get into the 5 seed, which is important because that means they would have played they'd play the Texans in the wild card round. And I mean, right now you can kind of flip a coin. I think the Texans are the weakest of the AFC playoff, the AFC division winners. But you could make a really good argument that the Steelers right now are playing even worse football than the Texans. So that was the second option. The third option was the Steelers win, the Browns beat the Ravens, and the Chargers win their game, and that would have elevated the Steelers to the third seed, would have dropped the Ravens to the 5 seed, and the Chargers would have been stuck at the 6 seed, and they would have played Baltimore. So those are the scenarios. And right now, we know the Steelers lost and the Ravens won. So if the Chargers beat the Raiders today, the Chargers will be the 5 seed, and they will travel to Houston in the first round of the playoffs to take on the Texans, which more than likely will be played on Saturday, I think. So right now, in my opinion, I mean, I think playing the Steelers or the Texans is a huge win for the Chargers. Personally, I would still rather play the Texans, but I think the Chargers can handle the Steelers. I think if not for injuries, when the Chargers played the Steelers earlier this season, particularly the injuries to Herbert and Slater and Alt, I think the Chargers have a completely different outcome in that game because they were off to a really good start and they were having some success on offense, and then the injuries came and things just went in the tank. So I think the Chargers can beat the Steelers. I think they can beat the Texans, but I still think the Texans are the most favorable matchup, although I would not have an issue with playing the Steelers in the first round. Next, we're going to go inside the numbers for the Raiders game. So I have a few numbers that I think are important. Again, I don't want to go too deep into this. It is an important game. The Chargers are in week 18. They're playing a meaningful football game. They control their own destiny, win, and they secure that 5 spot, which is huge coming off of a 12-loss season last year. Just shows you how much the culture has changed and what a great job Jim Harbaugh and his coaches have done. So the numbers that I have for you, the first number I have for you is 4. I think the Chargers need to have a minimum of 4 red zone trips in this game in order to win it. The Raiders are not going to score a ton of points. I don't think their offense is very good right now. Yes, you have to worry about Brock Bowers. But other than that, I don't really think they have a whole lot that can threaten the Chargers defense. So in my opinion, I think if the Chargers are in the red zone at least 4 times, then you're looking at a handful of touchdowns, and they're putting themselves in a position to where the Raiders just can't keep pace offensively. So 4 red zone trips, I think, are really important for the Chargers. The next number is kind of a combination number, and it's a number for J.K. Dobbins. And this is probably the most telling stat for the Chargers when it comes to wins and losses. When J.K. Dobbins is healthy and playing, if he has 15 carries and at least 50 yards rushing, the Chargers win the game. I do not believe they have lost a game this year in which J.K. Dobbins has run the ball 15 times for a minimum of 50 yards. So that is something to look out for. I think, like I said, that is probably the most telling stat for the Chargers. If they have success on the ground and they're running the ball with him at least 15 times, they're probably going to win the game. The next number for me is 3, and I think the Chargers need to have a minimum of 3 sacks. To me, if they're getting to the quarterback, if they're racking up sacks, it means they're getting off the field on 3rd down, which means the offense has more possessions, more opportunities to score points. And I think if they're getting to Aiden O'Connell and they're sacking him and they're hitting him, there's a pretty good chance that he's going to fumble the football at least once, if not twice, and give them a couple short fields to work with. So you got to get to O'Connell. You got to have those strip sacks. I think they'll come about if they get to him consistently, and it just puts them in a good position to have some success. And the last number is 35. And I think you want to hold the Raiders to under 35% 3rd down conversions if you want to win this game. I just think you want to get them off the field, have as many 3 and outs as you can. It's pretty simple. Get them off the field, get your offense on the field with the way it's playing right now, give yourself a chance to score some points and get them out of the game and stomp on their throats early. So that's it. That's the show for today. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Good luck to the Chargers today. Hope they play well and win that game and lock down that 5th seed. And Yeah, that's it. So have a great Sunday. Enjoy your NFL football Sunday, and we'll see you for after hours later tonight. Thank you.